Hello viewers, today we're going to be cleaning and servicing a Lasko Ultra WeatherShield box, the Fian. This is similar but also very different to the other one that I have from the late 90s or 2000 maybe. I don't recall what year that one is from. This one I think is from 2004. Oh no, this is from 2007 or 2008. So this is about 10 years newer than the other one. So it's kind of interesting to see a very similar design, really is short from the branding, still in production 10 years later. The other one that I have from Ed, Incandescent Ed, this one came from Van. He saw this at I forget what kind of sale it was, some kind of like tag sale type thing, and picked it up for me. And I think later on he kind of regretted it after he realized what a good fan it was, because he offered it to me prior to testing it. But this one, it says WeatherShield. The one I have from Incandescent Ed does not say WeatherShield. I think that the handle is the same as far as the branding is concerned. Now this one has the PSC motor, of course, and it also has the infamous sounds like there's a ghost outside. This one has the infamous blue plug, which will keep us safe. Now this one's moderately dirty. Not too much packed in the motor. I think it's fairly low hours, but it's got a lot of storage dust and dirt. I think this was sitting outside for a while. So there's some spider the webs in there and some pine the needles. I'll have to get those canceled out of there. But overall, it's not too dirty. I think we're actually going to clean the guard manually because there's a lot of surfaces here where we can use the melamine foam. And I don't think that the branding would get damaged in the dishwasher, but I don't really want to take a chance either. These are pretty uncommon. This is not a typical variant that you see kicking around. Handle's still intact. These handles seem pretty decent. A little bit stronger than some of the other ones. I don't know what all that. What the heck is all that? It's like silicone or something. That's peculiar. And it is a thermostat controlled model. So let's go ahead and turn this on so we get a baseline of how it works prior to the servicing. I think it works generally okay. It's just horribly out of balance. So we might have to balance it as well. It's already ready to run. So this one, I have really, that's it. I'm going to get the kilowatt meter right now. This is ridiculous. I've been needing it all day, and it has not been down here all day. And now I really need it again, and it's still not there. I'm just going to go and retrieve it. I think it's up here in the kitchen. I was using it with the air conditioner. Yep, here it is. It was in the kitchen. Where the other three are? That I couldn't tell you. I'm very curious to see what the power consumption on this is. And does it go up to 0.8 amps, or is it more? That is 0.57 amps. And it's going to be rated for 1.1. So I think, and I'll be able to tell better once I get it apart, I think that this is similar in concept to that awful Air King trashy box Fian, where it uses the more powerful motor and pairs it with a really flimsy blade, so it just runs at a ridiculous RPM. This is running very fast for a low speed on one of these. This is not a typical low. This is pretty quick. So I'm curious to see what it tops out on high. The medium. Gosh, the balance is atrocious on this thing. Yeah, that's kind of more like what the high would normally be in terms of noise level. That is .72 the amps. Yeah, it sounds just like the stupid Air King. That is .96. So I do think that this is the more powerful of the two motors paired with the flimsy blade. But it's certainly powerful. It's just the balance. We can correct that, but it's very noisy. I don't know why they build them like this. I don't even understand how a plastic blade that barely weighs anything gets this badly out of balance. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, and you can tell by the spin down too. The air resistance on that blade is very minimal. Seems like the bearings are still in pretty good condition. Alright, so let's begin taking this apart. I'm very curious to do a side-by-side, very technical comparison with CFM, noise level, so forth, of this one and the older one that I have. The older one, of course, blows us out of the water in terms of power, but this one is probably substantially more efficient. And on low, it might be fairly close. I think on high, the old one's definitely going to move more air, but on low, they might be similar. Not too bad inside. Nothing a little melamine foam can't handle. Yep, that's definitely the flimsy blade. I don't know. That's weird. Let's see if this is interested in coming off. Yes, it is. Yep, this is the thinner, flimsier blade. So if we swap this blade out for a WeatherShield blade or a wind machine blade, to actually have one kicking up around in the attic, I think, a wind machine that's busted in some way. This would run more like a WeatherShield, a premium, etc., which is the way I think it should have been built. Cut the noise level down considerably. Make sure these screws don't get all lost. This one at least looks like the card is centered over the fan. Half the time the stinking badge is like an inch off because the quality control is just so poor. And speaking of things that are poor, I think Lasko's marketing department is extremely poor. You know, there's so many different variants of these fans over the years, but the reality is they're more or less the same thing. You know, if you look at Lasko's entire lineup, all the box fans, they're all pretty much the same guts inside with some different colors and some different names applied to the model, and it's just Lasko products sell exclusively because they exist. That's what it comes down to. It's like Lasko figured out how cheap they could possibly make the 3733. That's just the way it is, and it just sells and sells because it exists. And that's it. There's no other reason. It's kind of a sad state of affairs, quite frankly, but that's what it is. All right, so this is a an evening pro motor. It's only for nighttime use. Never seen that before. And we're going to detach the entire motor mount and everything from the frame first. These are not JIS screws. These are regular American number 2 screws. Alright, now as far as the handle is concerned, let's pull that off here. There's some sticky stuff there. It's like Honeywell stuff. Man, that's good and stuck. As far as the handle is concerned, I'm not sure if it's worth trying to get that off. I'm not exactly sure how these handles come off. I should have asked Indicus and Ed how this works before, because I think he did clean and service the one that he gave me, and it's got the same handle, so he might know how the handle comes off. I really don't want to break the handle, because there is no replacing it. Not sure how the switch is, ouch, secured in place. It's usually a like a twist lock type thing, but it doesn't seem to want to go, and because it's sitting in plastic, I don't want to force it. It would certainly be a lot easier to clean if we can get this off, so we're going to give it a try. And if it seems like it's exceeding what's safe, we'll just stop. That wasn't bad at all. That was actually very easy. So, taking a closer look at this, it is not a twist lock, so it's a good thing we stopped. And instead of just forcing it, I think the easiest thing to do, which makes the most sense, will just be to pull the windings out from the switch, which I should be able to do. Because then we'll be able to detach all the electrical components from the frame. So, let's grab a needle nose here, and we'll stick this into the switch to release it. Surprisingly, those wires are actually in there pretty good for once. I've gotten better at this over the last couple of years, but I still don't like doing this. So ultimately, what this looks like inside is there's a metal piece that goes like this, and when the wire pushes in, it grabs it. So what we're doing now is we're pushing the metal piece up so we can pull the wire back out. This one is being very stubborn. Let's try a different tool. Do I have a nail over here? Let's try this little nail. I don't know if this will work any better or not, but we'll try it. No, it's not working any better. And there's something sticky on here, which is making a mess. What the heck is that for? Alright, now this is getting agitating. Yeah, I was kind of getting better at doing these, and now this is not coming out. Okay. That freak show is over. Now we can take the cord off. Deal with that separately. Can take the motor out. Deal with that separately. Put this away because it didn't work and quite frankly has nothing to do with this project. Now we'll detach the motor from the stinking flammable plastic housing. Brilliant design. There's a patent pending on this piece of plastic. I'll wash that stupid piece of plastic. Okay, so the motor has been separated. Now we can service this separately, which is not too bad. And the rest of all these parts can go over to the cleaning area to get washed. This cabinet does have a fair bit of rust inside, which is not ideal. I wonder if we should give it a quick hit with some steel wool before we take it over there. I think we might do that just to take off some of that rust. That's pretty substantial in the corner there. The paint used in these cabinets is really quite poor quality, and it tends to not stop the rust very well at all. On all the models, not just the 3733, even the ones like this that are allegedly high-end. It's odd that it wasn't, most of the rust is not on the bottom, it was on the top corner there. It's a small amount of rust over here, which we'll clean up. All right, that's pretty good. Let's go to the cleaning area. I think we're going to begin with this handle. trying to get off this this sticky stuff that's on this handle. It definitely seems like some type of silicone or epoxy. That part's not too sticky. It's this part that's very sticky. I think that will begin with some surface dangerous goo off. It's good stuff. Took it right off. We've got to be very careful up here where the writing is. Took it all off with no problems. Perfect. Now it's not going to be sticky anymore. Which is good. I don't like when things are sticky. They shouldn't be sticky. Tape should be sticky. Honeywell should be sticky. But a Lasko box fan handle should not be sticky. Can't tell if that's more sticky stuff or is that just regular dirt. Gross. I don't want to get this too wet because it still has the switches in there. Alright, that looks pretty good. It's a good balance between getting it perfectly clean and scrubbing it too much to the point we lose the writing. I'll just try to get some of this dirt out of the crevices of the switch cavities here. The melamine foam will take off writing, so there is a degree of caution to be heeded when dealing with stuff like this. Okay, switch is cleaned. The cord is not the cleanest though. Let's see, can we do something about the cord? Probably not because it's all sticky. I'll deal with the cord afterwards. Same thing with these knobs. These have writing on them, so we're going to proceed with caution. Good to know that the sewer pump is working properly. Wonder if this stupid thing ever got its patent. Good thing they patented it. I mean, I'm sure, manufacturers of other fans are going to be trying to copy this thing like crazy because it's just so great. If I ever tried to make a fan, the first thing I would do is try to copy the design of the motor housing on the Lasko 3733. The stinking blades. Lots of pine needles on this. Must have been used near a pine tree at some point. Gotta keep the sticky sap cool on the pine trees. This is more of that silicone that's on the switch. I don't know what the heck is up with that. Very strange. Don't need pine needles going down the sink down here. We don't have a macerator pump in here. I try not to have large particles go down the sewer here. Ultra. This is the first time I'm cleaning a massive garden here with this camera angle. It's not quite as far back as would be ideal, but I get most of it in the frame at least. As it's probably now out of the frame. Is that out of the frame? Yeah, kind of. There, now it's in the frame. The melamine foam is great at taking off little marks like this. It's amazing how well this works. That's amazing. I don't know of any other cleaning product that works like this. Yeah, it's actually cleaned up okay. I don't think it'll have to go in the dishwasher.
Alright, that looks pretty good. Just a little bit more on the bottom here, and then we'll call it. It's pretty much good enough. Okay, let's get this rinsed off. We missed a couple spots on the bottom here. Totally unacceptable. You know what, maybe I'll wash the other one, then I'll rinse them both. At the same time, we'll drain the sink out so we can better rinse them. This is really making quite the mess. Every time I opt to do this by hand again, I remember why I usually do it in the dishwasher instead. This makes a mess. Yep, this should have gone into dishwasher. Oh well. Already halfway done, I ain't gonna stop and put it in there now. The front I didn't want to put in there because of the graphics, but the back, there was no reason not to put the back in there. We're almost there. man, I forgot how tedious this is. Especially when there's a machine that can do this for you, and the way you do something else sitting right next to you. And a lot of people over the years say, what do you use a small toothbrush for? It works better. It really does. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the bristle type or the shape or whatever, but it gets in between the guards better than the other brush does. This is getting into all the areas that the other brush missed. It's not quick to use, but it works good. And that's why I use it. Okay. Get all this junk out of here. That's pretty conveniently all in one thing together. Just throw that on the floor for now because I don't have anywhere else to put it. And we'll drain this out. And then I'll rinse both of these guards together. And then we're going to have to clean up the cleaning area because I made a freak show of a mess here. There's water everywhere. Oh well, that's what it took to clean this up.
The stinking light almost fell. Alright, I forgot we have to do the cabinet still. So let's do the cabinet. And then... get all that water out of there. Off of everything in the nearby vicinity. There's more of that silicone stuff on there. Man, what the heck is up with that? Miracle product. Both of these products are excellent. That's gonna fall off. We'll just take it off and put it back on later. Try to avoid pieces of
melamine foam going down the drain down here as well. The water beat up on the cabinet because it's just so stinking clean. Okay, that made a massive mess over here. The whole thing is soaking wet. There's water everywhere. That is not supposed to happen. Water all over these lights. Not supposed to be water all over the lights. There's water all over the tank here. There's water all over the electricity, which doesn't matter. Water and electricity mix nicely. Not salt water, it's not a problem. I always like to reset this after every project so that next time we go to use it, it's clean. Not a complete filth show like it is now. Still, it's all over the stinking, it's all over the table here. It's everywhere. A stinking flood took place. Oh man, this is awful. The stinking fan is soaking wet. Everything's wet over here. It's not supposed to happen. Well, point taken. You have a machine to wash the cards. Use it. Otherwise you end up with this freak show. Alright, that's good enough for now. I'll clean up the rest of it later. Now we're going to work on the motor, and we need to turn it on to clean up the shaft. So I'm going to grab the handle and put that aspect of this back together first. Not ideal at all. Fortunately, it did not the brake. Oh, I forgot to clean the cord. Alright, we'll deal with that afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to stick this back in place now. And we know from the labeling on here, it's N, which is the common, which is the black. That goes first. And then it just goes 1, 2, 3 for low, medium, and high, or high, medium, low, whatever the ordering is. I don't know. Nor does it really make any difference. As long as it goes back the way it was, it will work properly. Okay, so put the knobs back on. Okay, that's cool. I'm paying attention real good today. It's full of the water. Okay. I'll shut that to on. And then there's a lot of rust and sticky stuff on that shaft, so we're going to just get a fine piece of sanding paper and clean that off. Oh, jeez. This kilowatt meter melted. You know when that happened? From that air, the conditioner. Wow, I didn't realize that. Holy cow, that got hot. Yikes. That's scary stuff. That's why you always observe equipment upon the first use. If I had just plugged it in and, let it run unattended, not good. But fortunately, I plugged it in and watched it. And I realized after a short period of time that the cord was getting way too hot and the power consumption was way too high. So I shut it off, because you should always shut off a piece of equipment if it's not working properly. Because if you leave the piece of equipment running, you can just break more things. Alright, that's pretty clean. These motors are very easy to work with. I don't expect anything weird to go on here. And it's not that dirty to begin with, so it should just be a simple relubrication of the bearings. Regular routine maintenance type lubrication. They're very free to begin with, but preventative maintenance is important. Okay, so this has 4 screws on the it.
Now if this meets resistance, you'll want to stop, but it didn't meet any resistance because we cleaned it adequately. Okay, so there's the screws, the front cover. We'll take the shaft out. There's a stinking web in there. And we do want to do some cleaning while we're looking at the back. It's very important to keep these motors clean. That seems to be the only failure point, is when these just clog up with dust and get no airflow. So take a soft brush here and just get any of the dust off. This one's not bad at all. I've seen them many times worse than this. Compressed air works very good for this as well, for the most part. But this is not bad enough to warrant starting up an air compressor. We can just clean it manually like this in a couple of seconds. Okay, that's really all that needs to be done. Okay, that's all cleaned out. Clean the dust out of this one. Okay, now we'll add some oil. Before we add the oil, I do want to clean out the front bearing with some isopropyl alcohol, just because we did that sanding and it's possible that some shavings got deposited in there. So we'll just take a quick wipe out of this. Looks pretty clean. But it never hurts to check. Okay, and we'll also clean the shaft off. A little bit of isopropyl for the same reason. We're not going to polish it down, there's no need to, it's pretty good. Nothing to do on the back bearing, it's working fine. Didn't do any sanding nearby, so there's not going to be any shavings within the it. So we're just going to completely leave that alone. Okay, this is ready to be lubricated and reassembled. So these are what we call sintered bearings. They have microscopic pores in them that allow oil to pass through during operation. It's hard to see on this particular fan, but there's a wicking material in this area here which holds oil. So we're going to go ahead and fill that up. Because this bearing is closed in the back, we can also just add some drops in there and it will soak into the wick. Let's put this back on. Put a touch of oil to start.
There's going to be an air pocket there, which you'll have to kind of clear out. There we go. That's spinning good and free. Add some oil to this side as well. It will take quite a few drops, maybe 15 drops or so if it's really dry. Add a touch of oil to start. And where's that plastic piece? Just want to make sure that the orientation of the front cover is correct, because the front cover is what holds it on. It goes like this. The capacitor should be at the top. No, at the bottom. This sits in a frame like this, and that's like that. Okay, yeah, this is correct. I've assembled enough of these over the years, I tend to just know, but it never hurts to check. Sometimes checking something for 5 extra seconds can save 15 minutes of damage control. Let's put the screws back in. I always like to look for the previous threads that this was in, so you'll hear it click and it drops into the old threads and you can reuse them. It's always a best practice as opposed to cross-threading in new threads. Click. 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 They're all torqued down to the same spec. The shaft is kind of stiff right now. That's fairly common. You have to strike it a couple times in a few different directions to get it to free up. This one is really taking some effort to get it to free up. You know, we might have put these screws a little bit too tight. These don't have to go very tight, just firm. This is really taking considerable effort to get this aligned. That's not usually the case.
Sometimes you can do a little more precise adjustments with the screws if it's really being troublesome like it is here. I don't normally have to resort to that, but this time we're going to have to. Alright, that's pretty reasonable like that. That's about what I would expect. It'll coast for much longer when the blade is attached, because there's hardly any mass in there as it is. Okay, let's check it one more time to make sure that everything's working properly. Make sure all 3 speeds are running. They seem to be. Alright, let's get the handle put back in. Oh, rats. Fudge in a bucket. I gotta take this back out because the wires have to pass through that box. Great. Well, here we go with that fun again. I hate doing this. I just feel like this switch is going to break. Now we're having to do it twice in one service. This is really not cooperating. Let's see here. Of course, the one that has to be done multiple times on does not want to come out at all. I don't think that there's anything out of the ordinary about this switch if it was to break, but
I really don't want it to break. I think this is the most difficulty I've ever had getting wires out of a switch. It's never a task I enjoy, but it's usually doable. This is ridiculous. It's just not releasing. Oh, shoot. That did not sound good. Come on. Oh, great. The wire just broke off inside there. I'm getting irritated now. Well, that one came out the way it was supposed to. So now we have a stinking wire in there. Hopefully I can kind of twist it out. This is a royal pain and it shouldn't be. I don't know why. Maybe this switch is designed differently. I don't know. But this is ridiculous. Finally. Oh no, that broke off right inside there. Oh, that's great. Now we got a problem. The wire broke off down inside the switch. Well, I don't know if it will grab like that now. I gotta cut all these off and redo this because that one broke. Not make the same mistake again. This switch should probably be replaced at this point. Its connections are not that good anymore. That really sucks. I don't have one on hand to put in here.
This is a great example of why I try not to disconnect things, and I try to tamper with as few parts of it as possible, because this stuff's getting old, it doesn't want to be messed with, and this is exactly what can happen. And unfortunately, this is a fairly common part. I can go to the Home Depot and buy a brand new 3733 and it'll have that switch in it. But that's often not the case. I think that should definitely be replaced. I don't like the way how loose that fits now. I'm a little surprised that's still working. I'll keep it for now. But it's flaky. I'm going to take a quick pause here to turn on the ambient temperature glue gun. We're going to make an attempt to balance this, not to make it perfect, but just to make it a little bit more reasonable, because this one is excessively out of balance. These are all out of balance, but this one is exceptionally bad. So I'd like to see if we can make it at least a little bit better. I mean, like, this is going to be shaking across the floor and vibrating in the windowsill, and no, it's not ideal. It's not even close to ideal, actually. And it probably never will be, but we might be able to make it a little bit better. Okay, let's put this wire back in place. One of these just came right out. See, this switch is shot now. Exactly why I don't like to tamper with these things. I'm going to have to replace that switch. Maybe I'll see if Incandescent Ed has a donor switch floating around somewhere. He might. Fortunately, these are solid wires. They're not stranded. So once we get these kind of latched in place here by the guard, we don't really have to worry about them coming off. But it's still not ideal. Okay, speaking of the rear guard, let's put it on. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. And considering it'll be dirty after it's used in the window for 3 days, I don't think there's a point in fussing about it being absolutely perfect. It's presentable. Actually, it looks pretty decent, all things considered. I made a total mess, and it was tedious, but I did a good job. Okay, so let's put this blade on. And let's see how out of balance it is. That's pretty bad. Alright, so what we need to do is we got to figure out where the heavy side of the blade, I wasn't even in the frame. We have to figure out where the heavy side of the blade is. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good methods for this. It's kind of guess and check type trash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of ambient temperature glue, and I'm going to put said ambient temperature glue in a place here at random. We'll just start with that blade like that, and we'll shut it back on. You can barely even see where the flat spot is in that blade. And let's see if it got any better or if it got worse. Well, it had no change because it fell out. Rats. Let's try again. That's worse. So we'll move it to the next blade. Let's try here. Well, now we're back to square one because I don't know where it was before. Now, if anybody has a better method for doing this, feel free to tell me. I don't really know of a good method besides guess and check, given the equipment that I have, or rather that I don't have. But instead of just telling me in the comments box that this is awful, which is something I already know, I welcome any suggestions on ways to do this better. better? Let's move it over a little bit. It's possible that more than one of these blades is out of balance, but there might be one that's lighter or one that's heavier. No, that's worse, so let's go back the other way. It could also be that we're using too much weight or too little weight. Let's try it behind this blade. Okay, it's much better now. So I think what we're going to do is we'll put some weight on that blade. Okay. So we know that the unit, it's this blade right here that needs some extra weight. That just hit the sheep. Bah! Ah! Sounds like a farm in here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the ambient temperature glue and we're going to put a little bit of glue in here like this. Oh, I don't want that mess in there. Which will act as a weight to try to balance this trash out. I don't know how much that is compared to this. Probably not as much. But maybe it doesn't need as much. Let's see. Wow, even on low it tips over. That's significantly better. It's still out, but there's a lot less shake than there was before. I'm just curious now, if we add that piece back in, add some more weight, see how that affects it. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. So we'll add a little bit more glue, and then I think we'll call it there because we've made it much better. It was really badly out of balance before, but I think it'll be usable if we just add a little bit more here. Kind of amazing how little weight will fix this. That's pretty decent. That's actually really good. I'm surprised I got it that good on the first try. I'm very satisfied with that. Alright, that makes up for our switch freak show that we had before. Okay, let's put the card back on, and we'll call this completed. It's coming very close to the blades down there. Huh. Alright, everything looks fine with the wires. Okay, successfully balanced. It's a pleasant surprise. Now I gotta get that mark off of there. Perfectly clean blade, and there's a stinking indication mark on there of where it was out of balance. So in this case, it was just that one. That's not taking off. I'll get another magical eraser from the, not from the Mrs. Filthy brand. So in this case, one blade was not as heavy as the others, which is what was throwing it off. That's not always going to be the case. Two blades that are heavier than the rest, or three that aren't as heavy, or some other convoluted thing, but this was pretty easy to deal with. I forgot to put any water on this. I'm very glad that as easy as it was. Before we started, that was going to be annoying to use out of balance. That was. Stinking thing would have been shaking everywhere. Huh, who knew? A light pencil mark is near permanent on a stinking Lasko back span the blade. You learn something every day, I guess. Our only problem is you forget 15 other things for the one that you learned, and it becomes a net loss. We'll let this run for a while to dry out, but that's it. It's ready to go. In time for summer, or lack thereof, summer 2026. It's a pretty good example. It's not in pristine condition, but it looks pretty nice now. Certainly presentable. If we repainted the cabinet, it'd be pretty much like new. And passed the cards through the dishwasher, but that's a different story. Handles there, which is good. All the icons and everything are still there. Does the pilot light work? Yes, it does. Very cool. Alright, let's give it a demo now that it's cleaned. And I do have this here still. I'll put that on another day. I have some spray adhesive from the 3M brand that will work well to put that back on. That needs to be sprayed outside though. I'm not doing that tonight. Okay, we'll begin on the low. Wow, it's moving a lot more air than it was before. It's almost ready to tip over. I'm gonna go grab some legs for it. Here's some very yellowed and of course broken legs. These are from that WeatherShield that has been kicking around the bedroom for the last decade. Still kicking. Alright, now I'm not worried about it falling over. Oh, the cord is still dirty. We'll deal with that later. Whoa. It's hardly shaking anymore. Much better. And it's running very smooth. It's amazing how much a little bit of balancing and a cleaning can improve. This is moving way more air than it was before. I think it's a little bit quieter and it's running a lot smoother because now the motor is not wasting any of its power shaking the whole unit around. All the power is directly to spin the blade, which is what you get when the blade is balanced. That is .56 the amps, 65 the watts, power factor 97. That's all reasonable. What the heck is all this trash on the dang window screen here? It's always something around here. Okay, the medium. Yeah, that's really in quite good balance for a stinking Lasko product. I can't believe I got it that good in just a couple attempts. That's very rare. And the high, which of course is the fastest speed. That is pretty loud. .95 the amps, 107 the watts, power factor 95. But that's pushing the air with some serious force. That's very strong. I gotta get a new airflow tester. This is gonna break any soon. This thing rips. I still think it would be better off with the better blade, but it's running pretty good. And it's weird to not see one of these shaking. It's just like balanced. That's how it's supposed to be, but that's never how it actually is. Wow, I can't believe how close to perfect I got that. Very cool. Well, thanks again, Van, for picking this up. Really neat piece. I really like these 2000s era and 90s era Laskos, especially these oddball ones that you don't see too often. And they're just very good fans on top of that as well.